Shocking truth. How free bread doomed Rome. We're tackling something that's fascinated me for years. The whole bread and circuses phenomenon in Rome. You know, that idea of keeping the masses happy with free food and brutal entertainment while the empire slowly crumbles around them. It's a story of spectacle, survival, and ultimately, self-destruction. We'll start by tracing the evolution of those infamous arenas, from humble beginnings to massive imperial extravaganzas, and then shift gears to the grain handouts that kept the city fed but at a massive cost. By the end, we'll unpack how these systems intertwined and what they reveal about power, people, and downfall. Stick around, it's going to be eye-opening. Alright, let's ease into this without giving away the big twists just yet. Imagine a society where the roar of the crowd in a packed stadium drowns out the grumbling of empty stomachs and growing unrest. Rome mastered this art of distraction, turning games and giveaways into tools that held a sprawling empire together for centuries. But beneath the cheers and the freebies lurked something darker. A slow erosion of what made Rome strong in the first place. We'll explore how these elements started small and ballooned into symbols of excess, hinting at the cracks that would eventually bring the whole thing down. It's a tale that feels eerily familiar, like a mirror to how crowds and comforts can mask deeper troubles. Now, let's jump into the heart of it, starting with the arenas. These weren't just places for fun, they were born out of ritual and grew into political power plays. The story kicks off way back in 264 BCE, during the early days of the Roman Republic. That's when the first recorded gladiatorial combat happened, put on by a guy named Decimus Junius Brutus as part of his father's funeral rites. It was a small affair, just 3 pairs of fighters in the Forum Boarium, the cattle market in Rome. The idea drew from Etruscan traditions, where combats honored the dead, maybe even with a bit of human sacrifice vibe to appease spirits. But it caught on quick among the elite as a way to show off wealth and gain public favor. By the mid-Republic, around the 2nd century BCE, these games, called munera, had evolved. They were still tied to funerals but started serving bigger purposes. Politicians sponsored them to win votes, turning mourning into marketing. Temporary wooden structures popped up in the Forum Romanum for crowds to watch slaves or captives fight to the death. It wasn't daily entertainment yet. These were special events, maybe a few times a year, but they symbolized Roman toughness and dominance over conquered peoples. Think of it as a flex, Rome conquering not just lands but turning defeat into spectacle. As the Republic waned in the 1st century BCE, things ramped up. Julius Caesar, always the showman, hosted games with 320 pairs of gladiators in 65 BCE, decked out in silver armor. He was edile then, using it to climb the political ladder. But the Senate got nervous about the crowds and potential unrest, so they capped the number of fighters. Still, the trend was set, games as populism. Permanent arenas started appearing outside Rome first, like in Campania around the late 2nd century BCE. Pompeii had one by 70 BCE, a stone oval for about 20,000 spectators, complete with awnings for shade. Enter the empire, and arenas exploded in scale. Augustus, the first emperor around 27 BCE, formalized the games as imperial duties. He hosted them to celebrate victories and keep the peace, but kept them modest at first. Then came the big leagues. Vespasian started the Colosseum in 70 CE, funded by spoils from the Jewish War. Finished by Titus in 80 CE, this beast held 50,000 to 80,000 people, with underground tunnels for animals and gladiators. Inaugural games lasted 100 days, killing thousands of beasts and fighters. Emperors like Trajan took it further. In 108 to 109 CE, he threw 123 days of spectacles with 10,000 gladiators for his Dacian victories. Who fought? Early on, mostly slaves and war prisoners, thrown in as damnati, condemned criminals facing execution by beast or blade. But by the late Republic, volunteers called auctorati made up half the roster. These were free men, often poor or thrill-seekers, signing up for fame, cash prizes, or even citizenship. Some, like the legendary Flamma, won Rudis, wooden swords symbolizing freedom, and re-enlisted anyway. Women gladiators appeared too, though banned by Septimius Severus in 200 CE. Arenas spread empire-wide. We found about 230 amphitheaters, heaviest in the west like North Africa. They weren't just for blood. Chariot races and circuses like the Maximus, seating 150,000 plus, were the real crowd pleasers, with factions betting on blues, greens, reds, or whites. Funding came from elites in the Republic, senators and magistrates footing bills for votes. Emperors took over, using state cash and personal fortunes, tying games to religious festivals like Saturnalia. But by the 3rd century, economic woes hit. Fewer games, smaller scale. Christianity rose, criticizing the violence. Constantine banned gladiators in 325 CE, though it lingered. Last known fights around 404 CE under Honorius. Arenas got repurposed as forts or quarries, symbols of a fading era. Shifting now to the bread side, the grain dole or annona. This welfare system started as a republican reform but morphed into an imperial lifeline. In 123 BCE, Gaius Gracchus passed the Lex Sempronia Fermentaria, subsidizing grain at half price for citizens in Rome. It used provincial tributes, especially from Sicily, to feed the growing urban poor. Before that, distributions were ad hoc during famines, but Gracchus made it systematic to win plebeian support against the Senate. By 58 BCE, Publius Clodius Pulcher made it free, ballooning recipients to 320,000. Julius Caesar cut it to 150,000 in 46 BCE to save costs, but the die was cast. Augustus grudgingly kept it around 27 BCE, seeing it as a duty, fixing it at 200,000 adult male citizens, about 5 modii 33 kilograms of wheat monthly per person, enough for 2 but skimpy for more. It was a privilege for urban Romans, not empire-wide aid. Who paid? The state, via taxes and tributes from provinces like Egypt, for months' supply, and North Africa, 8 months. Farmers there weren't robbed outright but taxed heavily in kind, feeling like exploitation. Governors collected grain seasonally, Egypt in spring, Africa in summer, shipping it to ports like Ostia. Massive Horea warehouses stored it, up to 290 in Rome by the 4th century, with reserves for emergencies. Distribution. No home delivery. Folks lined up monthly at temples or offices with tesserae vouchers. By the 3rd century under Severus, it included bread, oil, wine, pork. Aurelian in 270 to 275 CE formalized daily bread. But shortages sparked riots like in 22 CE under Tiberius. This enforced welfare, handed down by leaders to buy loyalty, became a core evil. It bred dependency, sapping the Roman spirit. What started as aid turned into entitlement, draining resources and fostering idleness. The urban masses grew lazy, scorning work, while provinces bled dry. This led to degeneracy, moral rot where virtue eroded, replaced by handouts and hedonism. Low birth rates among citizens meant fewer soldiers, forcing reliance on barbarian mercenaries and mass migration to fill gaps. Immigrants poured in for jobs and dole but didn't integrate, fracturing unity. Currency debased to fund it all, inflation soared, economy tanked. Leaders like emperors debased coins under Marcus Aurelius, fueling fiscal chaos. By the 3rd century crises, welfare's weight weakened the army, invited invasions. It paved the way for Bolshevism-like control where the state owned lives, leading to decline. Sexual laxity, childlessness, corruption flourished as people chased pleasures over duty. Mass migration diluted Roman identity. Barbarians at gates turned insiders, sacking Rome in 410 and 455 CE. Enforced welfare didn't just feed. It poisoned the empire's soul, turning strength to weakness until collapse. Diving deeper into themes, this system highlights how giveaways corrupt. Arenas brutalize souls, killing compassion for imperial compliance. Watch others die, forget your woes. Welfare created a shiftless underclass, diverting funds from defense to distractions. Historians note it misdirected power to elites, enriching few while masses stagnated. Degeneracy wasn't just moral. It was systemic. Fertility dropped as women shunned kids for ease, echoing Pliny's laments. Immigration without assimilation bred internal aliens, as Tacitus observed. It all spiraled. Welfare bred idleness, idleness bred vice, vice invited outsiders, outsiders overwhelmed. Rome's fall wasn't one blow but this rot from within, enforced handouts as the venom. Some powerful lines capture this. Juvenal nailed it. Already long ago, from when we sold our vote to no man, the people have abdicated our duties. For the people who once upon a time handed out military command, high civil office, the legions, everything, now restrains itself and anxiously hopes for just 2 things, bread and circuses. Edward Gibbon echoed. The decline of Rome was the natural and inevitable effect of a moderate greatness. Prosperity ripened the principle of decay, and Zosimus blamed Christian precepts for debilitating martial spirit, tying to broader moral decay. Tacitus on childlessness. Childlessness prevailed. These voices warn how comforts kill empires. Wrapping up, Rome's lesson is timeless. Beware the trap of enforced welfare and spectacles. They seem benevolent but breed decay, migration chaos, and ruin. Study this history to spot similar patterns today. It might save us from repeating the fall. Stay safe, stay free,